Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Open Source Education Podcast. This is our first episode in season 2. Like I mentioned, this season we'll be speaking to experts, people that are already in the open source space, actually checking out people who are not and just learning about what they know about the ecosystem. So basically, you'll not just be hearing from me, you'll be hearing from some of the top people in the space and just generally learning from others. So I really look forward to what this season is going to be like and following episodes because our guest is an amazing person. She's been in the open source space for a few years and has contributed to very important projects. I cannot wait to learn from her as much as I know that you will. And yeah, be my guest for the next few minutes. So, Maryblessing Okolie is a dedicated community architect and passionate advocate with strong analytical and engagement skills in tech communities. She's passionate about a sustainable tech ecosystem with a commitment to championing diversity, inclusion, and belonging within workplaces and the broader tech community. She's a community architect, she's an open source, inner source, and DEI advocate. It's very interesting because I don't think we've mentioned inner source before, so I'll actually want her to at some point talk about it during the um whole process. So like stay tuned and I'm gonna clap manually because I don't have the effects. But yeah. Hi Mary Blessing, thank you so much for being here with us
I don't know why I was just smiling, but I was flattered when you started saying experts, people that have been in the industry. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm one of those, but yeah, I mean, if Pressure says I've been in the industry for quite a while, then who am I?
today. Well, you know your stuff.
So, so yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is going to be my first podcast this year, and I'm
Oh,
really looking forward to chatting with you about a few stuff and learning from you as well. Yeah, thank you for the invite.
that's amazing. Thank you for honoring my invite. It really means a lot to me. So, our first question is just generally mental and well-being check. How are you doing? How was your day? How has your week been? This is being recorded on like a
Yes.
Tuesday, but like, yeah, how are you?
Yeah, Lagos is hot. That's how I would like to start. It's very very hot, and it's concerning that Lagos is this hot. And I think Nigeria in general is very hot this season, and like, the AC in the house is not even pulling weight anymore. Like it feels like it's just not helping. But we are surviving. I like to think so, and things has been great. Contributing to open source and just being alive, awesome. So yeah.
That's nice. I find it interesting that that the AC is not helping you against the heat. There's this running joke about how AC is an achievement. Any people that have that achievement are not seeing any difference with people that don't have.
I know, right?
It's very alarming. Oh yeah, we'll be
Right.
fine. Okay, so
Definitely.
when you were mentioning how great things are, you're like contributing to open source. I like that when you're thinking things are really cool and happening in like your life generally. Contributing to open source is one of them. So now I'm gonna ask you how long you have been in this space and how you got into open source.
Okay. Hmm, that's interesting because I'm trying to count back as to when I started contributing to open source. And I like to tell this story. I like to tell this story because it's a very cool story, and you, Precious, involved in that story. Do you want to still hear it?
Oh, that's so nice. Okay, let's
All
hear
right,
it.
great. So I had originally heard about open source sometime in 2022, or maybe the previous year, but I didn't really quite catch what it is all about. And when Outreach 2022 started off. I'm guessing it's the second cohort. They usually have the two cohort, the December cohort and the early month cohort. But I think it was the December one, and I was supposed to apply. However, you also applied, and I remember we met in Lagos. I want to assume it's the first time we had seen physically, and you flew in to Lagos for Oscar Fest.
Yeah.
And we were together, and you were accepted into into the Chaos project, and you were chatting with me about chaos and open source. But honestly, in as much as I've heard about open source, partly, but that conversation really was the one thing that really got me a little more excited, into what open source is, plus how you really talked about the Chaos project, what you all do. It felt really welcoming, and being a part of the Chaos project was how things really kicked off for me. So joined in 2022, sometime in August, and I'm guessing we had this conversation sometime in June, July. I can't recall now, but it has to be during that period when Oscar Fest held that year. And you were at the outreach contributor phase. So that was my proper introduction to open source, and even to a project which has gone to be home for me at the moment. And I like to tell this story because I'm very, very grateful that we had a conversation and how things panned out afterwards, right? So 2022 down to now would be how many years? That'll probably be like 3 years in the open source ecosystem. So yes, 3 years.
3 years is a very long time. That's really nice. And it's really cool that Chaos is like a very pivotal. Yeah, it is. It's quite long. And the time runs very fast. Yeah. It's actually quite long. And it's nice that Chaos is such an impactful project in different parts of our lives. Like it was one of the things that shaped how I see diversity and equity and inclusion. And that's something that we're going to talk about sometime later. But it was such an important project in my open source journey. And
thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy that I was somehow instrumental in this whole process. Right. So 3 years in open source so far. There is a general definition that if you check online, you can see what open source is defined as, right? Making code or whatever is built easily distributable, accessible, and modifiable, right?
Yeah.
The whole terms. How would you define open source so far with your interaction with community?
Okay. I would say I think I might have this in bullet points, just one word for each. But first, I would say friendly.
Okay.
I would say growth. I would say what's the word for when you connect with people you would ideally not be in the same space with in your everyday life, but
access.
Somehow a particular access. Great. So friendly, growth, access. Yes, perfect. So those are my top 3 bullet points I would like to define open source as since my involvement in the ecosystem.
That's amazing. That's actually really amazing, because it's great that your first point is actually how friendly and welcoming it is, right? Because it shows that there is a lot of effort that has gone into creating communities that are open, like accepting of people, where people join and they feel like they belong. Because there are times when you might be a part of the community. I think something I've actually experienced, and it doesn't feel as open as you might have experienced previously. So it's good that for
Yeah.
you can like it's just really great that there's a narrative that generally open source is friendly. I think part of that is encountering communities where these people make it a core of their identity to make sure that contributors, new members, anybody that interacts with them is able
Mm-hmm.
to participate and thrive there. So that's really great. And then
Yeah.
growth too, because sometimes people are like, how do I join? What do I benefit from an open source community, right? Especially if you're doing it
Absolutely.
voluntarily and you're not like getting
Yeah.
paid. One of the things
Mm-hmm.
there is you get to grow and get access again to both not just people, sometimes it's also projects and like you're in conversations or in rooms that are very
Yeah.
pivotal to
Yeah.
processes that governs like a very large scale of people's lives. So that's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do
Absolutely.
you, do you do open source full time or you have you contribute to open source
No.
voluntarily or yeah, just let us know what your work
Yeah.
involvements generally are like.
Yes. I contribute voluntarily, and I'm really working towards doing open source full time, really, and but in the meantime, I just set out certain hours in the week to um, be involved in the projects I'm already like working with.
That's really nice. How do you balance those hours? Is it like after work,
Uh,
weekends, in the middle of the night?
to be honest, that is a there's this thing about work-life balance.
Yeah.
I like to say that if you're starting out in your career, especially in the first 1 to 5 years, 5 years could be it's relative to certain people. In 5 years time, or in the fifth year in doing something, you might just have one certain shift in your career or life that takes you to a different level. But if you are in a certain environment, I wouldn't want to start mentioning names, but you know that you need to really plan well. So within your first years to your third to like your fourth years within the ecosystem, is just hustling. there's
Hustling is the
there's
word.
barely exactly, there's barely the term work-life balance, to be honest. And it's not saying that you shouldn't prioritize your health, it's just what is happening. It's just the reality of 80% of people in the industry, to be honest, like, to be fairly honest. And it won't go away anytime soon, because you just really need to grind to get up to that level where you can now start making some certain quote unquote rash decisions that would affect your career in maybe in a good way. I was doing something for my full-time job. I just realized one thing that I needed to do for the Inner Search Foundation community, and I was like, oh yes, I needed to do this. I switched, and how I switched, I don't even know how. Well, I went to do that, and I went back to this. So, oh my god, to be honest, I can't say there's a definite. Sometimes it's of what of priority to me at the time. My full-time role obviously takes a bit more of the priority, but sometimes I just dabble in everything together. But mostly I like to give certain days to my open source work. For instance, I don't like to get involved so much with open source thingy on Thursdays and Fridays. So any other day is fine. But anything other than that, you probably would not see me, or see me and I wouldn't be fully involved, or be partly involved in it. So yeah, it depends really. Things change, things shifts a bit within the project, and some things needs to be of priority, and you are sort of like leading that, you've really got no choice. Plus, yeah, to just add, I do most of the work at night as well. Sometimes within the day, if I had forgotten, because of time zone difference, it just makes sense to be awake, during the hours. It's sort of like their morning or noon, right, where you can get their attention, right? So, yeah. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was. It's really great. It's interesting to see, really, and I hope that at some point we are able to actually achieve, even if it's not work-life balance, but some sort of balance that makes sense to you,
Yeah.
whichever way you decide to find it. Okay, so
Mhm.
all this time that you've put in, and I know that you're not currently working full time in open source, but what would you say was like a pivotal moment for you in your open source journey that made you see, okay, I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to stick to this thing until either maybe I get like a full time role here, or it's become so much of my life, or something I'm very passionate about. What was something that happened that made you decide to keep being here?
Uh, Not this exact question, but there's a similar question people would ask, and I just, my go-to response would be, I love the flexibility open source gives, right? I have watched people who work in it full time and those who work in it as volunteers. I've seen how they do things, and I like to think that there is not this plenty pressure on them. It's everyone is calm and relaxed, again friendly, and I think I like that about open source. At least the projects I am involved with, right? The projects I am involved with currently. So seeing that, and I think that's a huge thing that I want as well when it comes to defining the kind of work environment I want to be in. I love flexibility. I do not like when a certain amount of pressure is placed on me. I mean, this is different, obviously, if you're like in leadership roles and all, but I know what I'm saying, really. It's my own terms and definition, right? Yeah, and so knowing that there's this flexibility in open source, it just gets me thinking, how do I secure a space or a place here, right? In the next 1 year, 2 years, I think I want to be in this space. What can I start doing now to, be fully involved that would get me a space here full time or sort of like permanently, right? So yeah, flexibility one. I had left for Europe last year, and I don't know. I mean, I believe in miracles. I am a firm believer, but I was just wondering, what would have gotten me to Europe last year if not for open source? So open source did take me out of sort of like my comfort zone, and I like me some challenge, right? So that also was something I saw, and the growing interest of open source, doing things in the open and or within the African continent has been increasing of late, and it's interesting to me because I would like to also be a part of that process. So just helping people be more aware is something I want to do, and I think I'm currently doing now with some of the leadership roles I have in certain projects at the moment. So yes. I don't know. It feels like I've said a whole lot. Did it make sense, Precious?
Yeah, it did. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah. So yeah, flexibility, opportunity to really reach out to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Good
let them be
way.
aware of.
Hopefully one of these days, open source will carry me to Europe.
Can you just stop joking?
So yeah. So like referencing how like community is important to you and the DI, there's actually there are variations of that word. I think there's EIDA2, there is DI&B, which is like diversity, inclusion and belonging. And there's diversity, equity, which is E. There is EIDA, which is equity, inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. Right. But like with respect to you, why would you say that we, like the general public or people interested in open source or random people that decide, oh, they just want to listen to this podcast, right? Why would you say community or diversity, inclusion, belonging? Why should this be something that we give attention to, right? I think we would actually focus more for people that are actually either current contributors to open source or involved in the open source community one way or another. Why should this be something that they care about?
So I like to think of community as the pillar of open source communities or projects. The same way it is for proprietary software organizations and all. It's also something, or I think it's even more in the open source ecosystem than it is in its counterpart. But yeah, that's not the point. What I'm saying is that community is the pillar of open source communities, open source projects, right? Open source itself thrives on the collaboration, the bringing together of people to achieve a certain goal, to achieve a certain need, right? And community is how that happens, right? And we talk about maybe attracting contributors into a project, right? When you get them in, that is a community. I mean, of course, there are other things that is involved in the process of sustaining a community, making it healthier, yada yada yada. But just bringing people together to build that open source solution, that idea is community, and you should care about it, right? Without intentional, coming together of people, projects really risks being stagnant, right? Because there wouldn't be enough hands to develop or build upon that solution, right? To build upon that that project that would go about to be something very important in the lives of people. Take Android for example. Imagine there were no people coming together to build that. Accessing Android as we know it today wouldn't have been possible. It's a collection of people, community, that has come to do that, and now we can enjoy having applications on our phones, being able to do all sort of things on our mobile phones, right? And because this group of people came together to do this, and you could say the same for other projects as well that has been successful. If you look closely, you would see that the reason why they were successful is that a group of people decided to take it upon themselves to see through these projects. And speaking of DI and B, and I was very specific to not including the E. I don't think I want to share that on this call, but I just feel like there's so many things that needs to be done to achieve equity, right? And it almost feels like it can't be achieved just yet. There's a whole lot that needs to be done. But that on the side, why should you care about DEI belonging, within open source, right? The coming together of diverse people, really, really helps a project thrive in so many ways. there is this analogy I had given during my talk at First Backstage this year on a particular time, a particular laptop product had, developed this motion sensor thinking on their device, and when a black person, tried to um, look at it and move their face, it doesn't recognize it. But when a white person came on to do the same thing, it moves along, wherever their eyes goes, it just follows their movement because it could sense the motion. So, and in conclusion, the people that had built that were a certain, set of people, right? Which is why it's able to identify that color of skin and not identify the other, which is very terrible, right? So there's so much that comes in play when diverse people come together, right? It brings about creativity, it helps open source projects build solutions that serve the broader audience and not just a certain group of people, not just one community and not just one kind of group, but for everybody, being truly inclusive of everyone, leaving no one behind. And you want to care about it because if there is nothing as such as diversity or inclusion, you wouldn't be in for some of us, you wouldn't even be in the company where you work, to be honest. There is a thing as diversity hire, which does not translate that, these people were brought on board because they are of a certain color, but because they have the capability, but just didn't get the opportunity to, get into that space. And whether it's time diversity hire or diversity whatever, the goal is that they are brought on board to make a huge change and difference with the skills and abilities that they do have, right? So you could have the abilities, you could have the skills, but you can't get into the room if you might not get into the room if you are not of certain color, of certain race, regardless of your skills, right? Because you could have it all, but then just not have the opportunity to, make a change or make an impact, right? And inclusion makes people feel valued, and everyone loves to feel good about themselves, don't we all? Right? So we all want to feel heard, respected, right? And that's what inclusion is there to do. Belonging as well, make you have this sense of belonging. And when the project does not do any of this, you will see yourself drifting away. You might not know why, or you just know why, but don't want to say. But yeah, it is DEI and B, literally, right? And if in some cases, probably DEI and B, right? So yeah, I think people should truly care about these things. It do exist, and because of these things is why a lot of us, are a part of something really huge, something really big. The skills are there, but do you have access to the opportunities that would really make an impact or would make you feel like you're a part of something huge and big at the end of the day? So yeah, again, I feel like I've said a whole lot, and I'm just hoping that it all made sense.
Yeah, it did. I'm actually appreciative that you did say a whole lot. It was very, very in depth on explaining why these factors are important, right? Because sometimes there are people who do not understand it, and you see arguments on why do these things exist until you realize that part of the reason why you're able to get into certain places not necessarily because you had the skills, because I'm pretty sure that there's no such shortage of skills if they wanted to make it restrictive. But that's what access does for you, and like consideration of that, making things diverse. It makes it possible for a wide range of qualities to be factored into a decision process.
Exactly.
That's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What would you say to, let's say, new contributors or existing contributors? What's something that they should be mindful of as they navigate and like exist in the open source community?
So as someone who just yeah last year I think started getting more involved with code of conduct, um, I would say follow project code of conduct really. Yes, follow it, read a project's code of conduct, community guidelines, read it, and follow through that guideline. Don't violate it, please. And don't dismiss people because of how they look, right? They could be more. Or if you had originally dismissed them, you won't be able to experience them in full, which is not cool. And again, be culturally sensitive, right? Recognizing the difference in people they are coming. So something happened recently in one of the projects I'm involved with, and I firsthand witnessed someone with autism in a meeting. That's the first time I'm actually witnessing an adult with that sort of like disability, if I'm allowed to say that, and it was quite interesting. It's it was interesting to actually witness because I saw how people were very patient, waiting for them to get through their speech, right? And I was like, oh my God. Like, if one wasn't aware of this thing, you would really think that this person is just unnecessarily delaying everyone's time. But they're taking their time because of the what they are going through, right, health-wise, right? So just literally be sensitive of these differences, language barriers as well. A lot of times some people would make fun of how certain people speak. It's really not your call to make, it's how they're brought up, and you need to start living with it and just come in terms with the fact that not everyone is like you and you need to be accommodating, right? And speak up really when things go wrong within an open source project. It doesn't do any good to either you as a contributor or as even to the project you are contributing to. It doesn't do any of you good if you do not call out harms or anything that seems to be like some sort of violation of certain conduct within the project, right? It doesn't help. So please do speak up, reach out to the right authorities, and also be patient. Things don't come by easily. Like, open source is not a get rich quick scheme. I mean, how do they say it again? But if you can't be patient enough, just soon enough you will be able to like see the difference you are making within the project and even the ecosystem at large, right? And be you literally in open source community. Don't try to be anyone else. The more you show up in your authentic self, the more people recognize that and appreciate you more for that, right? And really try to do things at your own pace. Seek help, seek guidance if you need it, when you need it, really. And what else? If you are a project lead somehow, please give credit to people people you lead in, when they do stuff within a project. It just helps boost their morals. I have encountered a project that I didn't feel like I was doing anything because nobody was telling me even the right things I was doing. So it just helps, right? And generally, as a collective, please do not gatekeep. It's open source, so really be generous with sharing information and looking out for others within the space. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share.
That is so amazing. That's actually so, like, it could be a book. Maybe whenever you want to write a book on open source, let us know. That's a lot
please.
Let's condense it. A contributing guideline. Actually, that's just really good. It's
interesting.
A really good contribution. Like, it's a very good contributing guideline for people who want to go into open source. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. I've been in the open source community for a bit,
sure.
But like, there's so much that I've learned, like from just speaking to you, understanding why DIMB is very important, why we should follow code of conduct, and there's the talks about be inclusive, but then you don't understand how much impact it has until you're in a situation where you are where you have to actually apply these things that you've been saying in theory, and then you see yourself like practicing a lot of patience, a lot of kindness, and just letting people know that okay, it's fine, go at your own pace. It's great. Don't like worry too much. And that whole thing about giving credit when due, it can sometimes be frustrating, especially if you're new and you're trying to find your feet and it doesn't feel like
exactly.
So it's very good for both leaders to be able to create environments where tiny contributions are still seen as very meaningful and people are encouraged to continue building. Right? Little drops make an ocean. Tiny contributions make
So speaking sorry question. But speaking on this, something just happened a few days ago. I had joined the OLS community and I was just reading through Slack and I noticed that help was needed somewhere to review a particular transcript. So I went on GitHub and I was asked to be assigned. And I didn't even have to do too much. I just had to look through this transcript and follow through the guide that was shared in Charlie on the GitHub repo. And I sometime yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, the OLS community kind of like gave me a shout out on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh, you are nice. Like I didn't even do too much. Like I wasn't expecting it, but guess what? Like I am now more determined to actually stick around in the project and see how much more I can help and get more involved with whatever is going on. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's really good. So you see, when you create inclusive communities, you make people actually want to stay. And communities are part of the reasons why open source projects actually survive. So that's so cool. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. We have one last question for you. It's a trivia question.
Oh, great.
Would you rather read a book or listen to the audio version?
I would rather read a book, to be honest. I don't know. I have this thing for physical copies. I don't know. I just want to see them around. Sometimes I might not even finish it, but I just want to see it around. But I try my best. Trust me. Whenever I buy a book, I try my best. Or whenever I'm gifted one, I try my best to read it. I'm not like that. So please, if you want to gift me books, feel free to gift me books. I love physical copies. I have this highlighter at home, and physical copies helps me like highlight, paragraphs, sentences that kind of like resonates while I was reading the book. I know soft copies do that sometimes. I don't know some softwares now, but I just like to use my hand, to mark that line with the highlighter. So yeah, I really do like physical copies.
That's amazing. All right, I would ask our listeners what do you think about sending you. and I'll check.
All right.
Thank you so much for
Oh
giving
my
us your
god.
time. And if you're
Yeah, I enjoyed
listening,
this. Thank you.
thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. If you're listening to this, you can reach out to Mary Blessing on LinkedIn. It's Maryblessing Okolie. Her details are going to be on the resources part of our channel when we send this out. Do you have any other place you'd like people to reach out to you on? You can actually, if you hang around in the chaos community, you'd see her there. What else?
Yeah, INASOS Foundation community as well. I didn't mention what INASOS is, but I guess that's a conversation for another day. But it's pretty
Yeah.
much doing open source within an internal organization, literally.
Oh, okay.
The way you do open source in the public, but this time around within the confine of a particular organization rules and governance or structure. So yeah.
I'm very interested to hear more about that. Maybe in the future episode, actually. Pretty sure it will be next.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I'll extend an invitation.
Yeah, I
Thank you
would
so
be
much.
happy to. Thank you too.
All right, thank you, listeners, for staying this long to listen to I Am a Blessing chat about different parts of open source community, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and just generally learning about our journey. I hope that it is helpful to you, and it just, especially if you're new, it gives you direction on how you can find your way in the community and how much growth can happen within a short period of time. Keep contributing, keep learning, and have the best day. Bye.
Bye.